Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you an OP Lightning Draconic Sorcerer build in Baldur's Gate 3. With the Draconic Sorcerer, we can add our Charisma modifier to the damage, we get built-in mage armor and additional health points, so it's actually a pretty solid class overall. Now diving right into things, we're going to grab for cantrips. I'd recommend having Mage Hand to be able to throw water bottles. Whenever a target gets wet, they take double damage from our lightning and cold damage spells. This can be easily done by using a Mage Hand to throw a water bottle. We can drop it as a free action, so this is very useful. We're going to take Shocking Grasp because this will make it so the target can't take reactions if we need to run away without getting hit with an opportunity attack. This works well. Ray of Frost is also nice to reduce targets' movement speed, and Bone Chill, as some targets, if they stop receiving healing, it's a huge debuff to them, so that's a really good one to go with. Now, for spells, I would recommend having Shield, increasing armor class by 5, great, and Magic Missile. This is just guaranteed damage. Early game, you're going to be mostly using your cantrips anyways, but Magic Missile is just a guaranteed shot. Ice Knife or Thunderwave are two other good spells. And for our Draconic Ancestor, go with either the blue or bronze. These will both give lightning damage, and you can become resistant to lightning damage, with the bronze giving us the Fog Cloud spell, and the blue one giving us Witch Bolt. Neither are amazing spells, but Witch Bolt at least gives you another lightning damage attack. This can be upscaled to do a massive amount of damage, but on every subsequent casting of this, as is a concentration, you only do a 1d12, so it's not that great. But we'll go with this here. And for ability scores, I would recommend going 16 dexterity and then putting the points into our wisdom here to get this up to 14. So we're going to go roll with 14 constitution. And then you can also put a few points into intelligence as well. Something like this would be good though. 16 dex, 14 constitution, 10 intelligence, wisdom, and 16 charisma. Now there is another way, I'm just going to briefly mention it here, that we can go about building this. If we add in the Tempest Domain Cleric, we can use their Channel Divinity to max roll damage. This will also require us to take the Wizard, however, because with the Wizard, you can scribe Chain Lightning. So we need 2 levels of the Tempest Domain Cleric and 1 level of the Wizard. You don't have to do that, though. We can go a full 12 levels or 11 levels of the Sorcerer. I just want to mention that there, because you could put some points into the Wisdom or Intelligence. If you also have the Dexterity Gauntlets or the Amulet of Constitution, you can take the points and put them into the Intelligence. I'll do that for the testing purposes to showcase how that can work, but you'd use this stat spread otherwise. Into level 2, we get Meta Magics here, and for this one, I'd recommend taking Distance Spell, increasing your spell range by 50%. Why this is good, sometimes you can't hit anyone with a spell, and this will change that. It uses 1 sorcery point, and Twin Spell, you can twin haste to yourself and 1 other, which is really good. And for the spells we'll be selecting, Thunderwave is really nice, 2d8 thunder, but it pushes enemies back. That can be really good. Chromatic Orb is another one we can do lightning damage with, so this can be a decent option as well if you prefer. I just think Thunderwave brings more utility than Chromatic Orb, but it's your choice entirely there. Level 3 gives us one of our best features with the Quicken spell. We use 3 sorcery points to be able to use a spell as a bonus action, which is extremely good. We also get some very powerful spells with Hold Person, Scorching Ray, and Misty Step. Now, we don't get any lightning spells here. That's one thing that's kind of unfortunate, so we can take a Hold Person. Hold Person's nice because then our Witch Bolt will be a free crit if we're close range, so that's kind of nice. We'll take that there. And then into level 4, we get to take another cantrip. I'd recommend taking Firebolt at this time because you just want to explode things. Firebolt's great for that. And then for our next level spell, I'd recommend grabbing Scorching Ray. This is good because we can grab the Fire Acuity hat, and this will give us a max stacks of our Arcane Acuity, which is really good. However, we can also get this by using the Storm Scion hat, which is thunder damage based. And for our next feat, I would recommend Alert for the +5 to initiative is really good. Ability score improvements are also quite good. We can take the Charisma up or Intelligence if you really wanted to cast Chain Lightning really badly, but I think an ability score improvement on Charisma works best, or the Alert feat. Again, we don't have to do the Wizard dip. It's just going to be a good way to add max rolls of damage, which is pretty crazy. Level 5, we get to take another choice in spell here, and I would recommend at this point taking Lightning Bolt, because at next level we'll be able to power it up with our subclass feature, the Elemental Affinity damage, adding our Charisma modifier to lightning damage spells. This is great, because that's a lot of extra damage we'll be adding. On top of this, we get to take another spell here, and we can go with something like Fireball, Counterspell being really good to have too, because you can't learn this from a scroll, and Haste is also a good spell to have. At this point too, we can also take off one of the previous level spells if you prefer. Like if you don't want Thunderwave here, instead you want Fireball. You can do it by taking that. So you get options there to really change things out if you want. Into level 7, we get ourselves another sorcery point, and we also get some higher level spells, with Ice Storm being one of the highest priority because Ice Storm can create difficult terrain for the enemy, and it does not require concentration. Level 8 is great because this is when we get a feat. We can take an ability score improvement, and we can bump up our Charisma. or intelligence again, as I mentioned. And alert feat is also really nice to have. On top of this, we can go down and take like spell sniper, get increased critical hit chance, and then also take eldritch blast if you wanted to. But I think alert or an increased charisma is best, because this will also add elemental damage. So it's now a +5 to our lightning spells, which is kind of nice because that's doubled to +10 due to water. And for our next leveled spell, I would recommend grabbing Confusion. Can be good if it can confuse a large group of people. Haste is also really nice to have because you can twin this to another character, so that's my personal favorite. But even Misty Step is a good one, or Mirror Image for better survivability. And at this point, I think this is where we can go and add in another character or another level. We can take, so I guess I'll show the few different ones. You can go all the way up to level 11 Sorcerer. At level 11, you get the Draconic Fly, and you would also take Chain Lightning. And then for our final level, we could do a level of Wizard or a level of the Tempest Domain. Now, why I'm going to mention the Tempest Domain is it's actually really good for a few reasons. So Tempest Domain will give us heavy armor proficiency. It's a subclass feature, so this is given to everybody. We also get a reaction that does 2 to 16 lightning damage on an attacker. And then we also get our Thunder Wave back, which we removed previously, and Fog Cloud. So we get both of those spells there. We can then also take Sacred Flame if you wanted to. Toll the Dead, it's an okay cantrip. And then we can also give ourselves guidance. The big thing though is heavy armor and the reaction. We can prepare spells, the big one being Create or Destroy Water, because this can now let us double our lightning damage. So this actually works out best. Command is a good spell, but it's hard to use command since our wisdom is not that high. So we'll grab ourselves Healing Word, which is also not going to be great, but it's a bonus action heal. If you have a teammate that went down, it can bring them back up as a level 1 spell. Level 2 is the big thing here though, Destructive Wrath. Whenever you deal lightning or thunder damage, you can use your Channel Divinity to deal maximum damage instead. There's an amulet that will give us an extra Channel Divinity as well. So what this means is we can roll Chain Lightning, which does 80 damage max, Create Water, that's 160 damage guaranteed, and then we add our Charisma modifier, so it's a +10 to the damage. Yeah, we hit for 170 damage guaranteed. It's pretty crazy. And what we'll do for our next leveled spell, I guess Bless can be a good one to go with as well, or Sanctuary. Sanctuary is actually pretty crazy to get here. For the deity, Talos just makes the most sense, so we'll go with that there. But yeah, we got some good options here. Now, level 3 will give us the Shatter spell, Gust of Wind, and you could take Spiritual Weapon, but it's not worth going 3 levels of Cleric. At this point, we need to add in the Wizard, because this can allow us to scribe Chain Lightning, which is going to use a lower stat, but we can build up our Arcane Acuity. As I mentioned, you can go 11 levels of the Lightning Cleric, or the Lightning Sorcerer there, but we'll take our remaining cantrips here that we don't have, and for spells, you can learn a lot from a Wizard. It's mostly just going to be extra utility, so you can take things like Shield, which doesn't really use your armor class, or it doesn't really use your spellcasting modifier. I'd recommend taking spells that are all going to not use that, but we're going to scribe the most important ones, so that's not too much of a deal. Now, we got a few options. So we could go with this here. We could take Bladesing if you really wanted to, but Necromancy is good because it'll give you a healing. For Chain Lightning, that'll heal you for 12 health points. Evocation can make it so that you sculpt your spells and your allies won't get hit by your spells, which is kind of nice if they're in your lightning bolts. But I actually don't think it's best to continue on with the Wizard to get a subclass. If you really like the Wizard subclass, you can. I think it's best to actually end off with the Sorcerer, because we get a very powerful spell that will use our Charisma with Cone of Cold. You can learn that from the Wizard, but I think that this spread actually works best, as this will give us a sorcery point and give us some very powerful spell options. And then we can also replace spell here if you want to take off something that we took from another earlier level, like the shield spell from the Wizard. You can remove that, and then with this we could add on the Hold Monster or Insect Plague, something like that. Not needed, but it's an option. Now, as for gear, we do need a Scroll of Chain Lightning, so we're going to learn that. Since we have full spellcasting levels between our 3 subclasses, I also grabbed the Odaluk's Freezing Sphere and the Wall of Ice spells. Those are nice to have. Now, we could take, again, you could take Shield here as a spell. I want to always make sure that we do have Chain Lightning here. 2 other good spells are the Minor and Major Elementals. I'm not going to show them off in this video, as I've done that in previous videos, but they're good to have too because they don't require your intelligence to be high. We only have a 14 spell save DC compared to a 17 with our Sorcerer. However, we do got items to offset that and make this much better, so this can be pretty solid too. Find Familiar is also not a bad spell to have. Grease can be useful too. Also, you can take a Scroll of Mirror Image here to give yourself an increased 9 armor class, which is pretty useful because that doesn't really scale off of our stats either. And then you can also take a Scroll of Misty Step too if you wanted to learn Misty Step, so that you can get both of these from the Wizard. So this is nice because you can just prepare both of these. They don't require any overall spells versus just the Chain Lightning there, but It's your choice. The big ones we'll be using are our sorcerer spells. We have lots of cantrips. Now for gear, I would recommend there's two really good hats. The Hat of the Storm Science Power. Whenever the wearer deals thunder damage, they gain arcane acuity. What's cool about that is if you have somebody else on your team that has Valor, Alluve, they have the Shrieking Song, which will make the targets receive thunder damage. So this can work very well because you can do a Scorching Ray and hit a bunch of them. However, that's not the only option. We got the Hat of Fire Acuity, which is just easier. When you deal fire damage, you gain arcane acuity for 2 turns. You can upcast a Scorching Ray and get max stacks of arcane acuity. So those are 2 options. I'm going to use the Hat of the Storm Science Power because it makes sense. Lightning, storm, thunder, they all go together because we get the Gloves of the Belligerent Skies as well. Whenever the wearer deals thunder, lightning, or radiant damage, you inflict 2 turns of reverberation on the target. This can make them fall prone, and it'll also deal thunder damage to them, which can also proc that. We also got the Boots of Stormy Clamor here, which will also give it the target 2 turns of reverberation when we inflict a condition. So if you have any other items that can inflict conditions, like the Callus or Coruscation Ring, whenever you're surrounded by glowing people, you can apply 2 radiating orbs. I also had the Ring of Mental Inhibition here, so whenever a foe fails a saving throw against one of your spells or actions, they gain mental fatigue for 2 turns, which minuses their intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws. I also like the Amulet of Greater Health just for better survivability, but as mentioned, Amulet of the Devout, this will give you an extra +2 to spell save DC, and it can also give you your Channel Divinity. So actually we'll show that off because that's 2 Channel Divinities do your maximum lightning and a +2 your spell save DC, which is really good because then our wizard's now up to 16. So a little bit better. I also got the Potent Robe on here, so this will give you additional cantrip damage equal to your charisma modifier. This is good early game armor. However, we have heavy armor proficiency, so we can boot up and use the armor persistence here. Everyone can use the armor of Heldas, that'd be the best choice, but we got the armor persistence, we can use the armor of agility. These will both give us same armor class. Armor persistence will reduce damage and give us resistance and blade ward, which is really nice too, because that'll give us some extra survivability. And with the Favoring Colors die here, I like the tier die. It looks great on this. So that's going to give us some extra survivability, especially if we don't use the Amulet of Greater Health. You can get that because we only have a low health pool there. So we don't want to get hit often. I guess that's with the 8 Constitution. So you want to take your points out of Wisdom and put them into Constitution. But the Amulet of Devout, getting a +2 bonus to spell save DC is really nice. So you got options. And we also got the Spell Sparkler early game. This will give you lightning charges. Not super powerful, but it's something. Like lightning charges are better than heat, for example. The Morning Frost would be another good early game spell or stave to use. But once we get to the end game, the best choice is obviously Mark Heshker because it gives you another Chain Lightning. So wow, we got 2 Chain Lightnings now because of Kreska's favor, giving us the Bolts of Doom. This will give us additional, it's also going to trigger the Destructive Wrath, so don't burn that off. This will give us a Kreska's lightning, so you get each extra lightning damage equal to our proficiency bonus, which is going to be doubled, so it's a +4, which is then a +8 with water. And when it deals spell damage, it gains 1 lightning charge. When attuned to Kreska's lightning, and cast Chain Lightning and Lightning Bolt. So yeah, we got extra castings of these, and they're going to use our charisma, so pretty useful. And then we're actually going to hit extremely hard with our spells because of that Channel Divinity giving us the extra damage. Also, to offset some lower health, you can have a cleric use Hero's Feast here, which will give you additional health. And then also have them cast healing or aid. Now for our first turn, if you're able to have someone with the Shrieking Song of the Valor Alluve weapon there, what we can then do is use our Chain Lightning from our staff here or a Lightning Bolt, hitting as many, whatever is going to allow us to hit as many targets and high value targets as possible. And then we're going to blast that there, and you can use the Chain or Destructive Wrath to deal maximum amount of damage, which is going to do a max 80 there. So boom, 89 total damage. So that took out multiple targets there. And it got us crackling with lightning charges as well. So that's pretty useful. Then what we can also then go ahead with doing is, we got this target here, but we got another Chain Lightning that we can blast away with. So we can go ahead with one of these here. It's going to hit 3 targets if we can move into a proper position. Lightning Bolt's huge because sometimes you can actually hit a lot of targets with it just because it has a huge radius. And then we have our Destructive Wrath to do extra damage. We don't have to use that, but it hits really hard there, as you can see. We also got a 36 armor class with haste up and our mirror image, so that gives us a pretty solid way of surviving. And we also got a bonus action, so we can use our quicken spell. We got 3 of those, and I would recommend also using Ice Storm here to set up crowd control if you're able to, because ice is just super useful. Even though it's a thunder based build, it's a storm, and we're able to deal a little extra damage there. Now if we want to do a serious blast, we have Create or Destroy Water here. What's nice about this is it can be upcast to include more enemies there. So that's now 4 that'll be in this water. And what's great about this is then we can then use Mark Heshker as a free cast, but we also have a level 6 spell. And if you're a Lithid, you get another free cast. So that can potentially be 4 Chain Lightning. Now this Chain Lightning And for some reason, my UI is not popping up properly to show the hit chance, but we'll just roll with that there and use the Destructive Wrath. 180, 180, 180. Yeah, 180 guaranteed damage on 4 targets. That's pretty tough to ignore how powerful that is. And that's not all we knew, because I was with haste, we got water, and we had lightning out. And then we also have our quicken spell too, so we can then go ahead with another choice in spell, and we can even get up close and personal with something like a Thunderwave. The Fowler Louvre doesn't always work properly with this. I'm going to hit mince there, but that gives us our arcane acuity. So the fire acuity hat's probably better with Scorching Ray, as the Fowler Louvre's kind of spotty with how it works. But overall, you can see there, extremely powerful, 180 guaranteed damage thanks to the channel divinity. That hits hard. Lightning damage is super good in Baldur's Gate 3. Personally, I prefer the cold damage spells. Cone of Cold being a great level 5 spell that we could fall back on, and Odaluk's Freezing Sphere being probably my favorite spell in the game. But overall, Chain Lightning hits hard. So let me know your favorite thing about this in Baldur's Gate 3. Hit the subscribe button below if you haven't already, and I hope you have an incredible day.